Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the CalTPA Virtual Think Tank for this Friday, December the 4th. We are very excited with the information that we are going to be providing to you this morning. We have an excellent presenter, and I am excited to get to introduce her soon. But what I'd like to do first is just go over some housekeeping and some information that is important as we begin our virtual think tank. Today, I am not joined by Amy Rising, but I am joined by Zoltan Sarda, another consultant with the performance assessment team, and he is here with me as a co-facilitator from the commission. I am James Webb, a consultant with Performance Assessment Development. We are excited to bring this information about using EdTech with primary grades with you today. And our facilitator for that piece of information is Becky Colling, who is from the Newhall School District. And when she gets to her portion of the presentation, I'll let her provide some more information to you. Just in terms of norming, we have about an hour with you this morning to present this information. We are recording this session and it will be available on the Commission's YouTube page under the playlist CalTPA. So I did want to notify everyone that we are recording this session. Our upcoming virtual think tanks for this next year is looking at, in January, supporting preliminary TPA and PSVTW candidates in completing the CalTPA. We will have some information with regard to this topic. And then I'm very excited in February to be providing you, and I will be the presenter, on our updates to the Education Specialist CalTPA, which, as you know, is under current development with our design team and is being piloted by approximately 15 programs, and we're excited to start receiving that data. As a reminder, the Commission has a YouTube channel in which we have a number of different supports that you can access. And if you would like to specifically go to the CalTPA playlist, you can go to it in the bit.ly that is on this particular slide. We will also put that into the chat for you so that you can be able to have access to the YouTube playlist for the CalTPA. Along with those supports that we have with YouTube, we also have weekly office hours that I just wanted to remind everyone of. For induction candidates, these are candidates who are either on a PSVTW or under an executive order preliminary. They are invited to join us on Wednesdays from 4:15 to 5 p.m. Teacher induction directors, staff, mentors, program leaders are invited to join us on Thursdays from 9 to 9:45. We're excited to have Karen Sacramento, who is from PSD and works with induction, there with us as well on Thursdays. We do have our office hours for preliminary programs on Thursdays from 10 to 10:30. And then we also on Fridays have our education specialist pilot programs joining us from 10 to 10:30. So please join us during those office hours and we will get that information to you. Before we turn it over to Becky, just wanted to review what upcoming windows we have for submission and reporting dates. We have gone through our first set of December and earlier submission dates. And so now the next time that we have to submit is December 17th. Lori, I believe there was a submission window that ended yesterday. Is that correct? Or does it end today?
It ended on December 3rd. What's
3rd.
today?
Okay.
The 4th.
The 4th.
It was yesterday.
It was yesterday. Okay, perfect. So here are our upcoming submission deadlines. Again, as you can see, there is one a month. In April, you'll notice that there are 3 due to the ending of semesters in different programs. And then we have these through June. So please make a note of the submissions that are due by 11:59 p.m. for then submission dates for scores on the left. So again, remember to read. If you want to score on the left, you must submit by the dates on the right. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is also norm the information that if when we have questions that come up during the presentation, we will be following this on the chat window, and I will be doing that and providing those questions to Becky. I do want to respond to one question that was asked by Stacy. Is there a place where we can find these dates? Lori, is this on the CTC exams webpage? Lori has read my mind, and she is amazing, and she has put in the link where you can find the dates for submissions. Lori, thank you so much.
I couldn't type and talk at the same time.
I get it. It's very challenging for me to do that as well. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to formally introduce our speaker, Becky from the Newhall School District here in Santa Clarita. She is one of my neighbors because I am based in Santa Clarita, and I will let her introduce herself, and we are so excited to have her here and sharing all the wonderful information that she has. Becky, over to you.
Thank you so much. I do want to make sure I am sharing screen properly, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you all so much for inviting me to come and share today. My name is Becky Colling. I am an instructional coach in the Newhall School District. And prior to becoming an instructional coach, I was a kindergarten teacher for a few years and then went up to 5th grade and then moved out to California. So I've taught in a couple other states. Moved out to California and started supporting teachers in coaching. I'm a Google certified coach, Google certified trainer, all of that. I can get into all of those later, but my main focus with teachers is on how do we integrate or utilize technology in a meaningful way, especially in our primary grades where it can be a bit challenging. And so I'm hoping by the end of today, you each get some more ideas to be able to help candidates and just see the process that we go through. Feel free to ask those questions in the chat as well. And James, if questions come up, definitely interrupt and let me know. That doesn't bother me at all. So our outcomes for today are to really understand the difference between enhancing and replacing instructional technology. I'll dive into more of that in just a minute, but they are very different. And sometimes we get stuck in that replacement world. So how do we enhance instead of just replace? And then we're going to talk about incorporating digital technology to support student learning. So if we're going to integrate technology, it needs to be intentional and it needs to support learning. And then finally, defining technology options for achieving and demonstrating learning goals. With this, I'm going to go through and I stuck with 1st grade because it was kind of in the middle of K2, but I'm going to go through a 1st grade standard in ELA and a first grade standard in math and show different ways that you could integrate technology in meaningful ways. Before I do that, I do want to get to know all of you here. So in the chat, or you can type it in too, we're going to go to a bit.ly. And this bit.ly is going to take you to a Jamboard where you can just take a few minutes to share who's in the room. It helps me to know who's in the room. And it's just a fun way to kick this off and something that I would do with students, not necessarily just like this, but if you go to the bit.ly/years of service 1, years of service was taken, it will take you to this Jamboard, and I'll share it in the chat. If you've never used a Jamboard, I'll walk you through this quickly. Let's see, and thank you, James. And here's the direct link you can click on in the chat. If you've never been in a Jamboard, it is truly a virtual interactive whiteboard. It is a way for students to be able to type, draw, add pictures, all of that in a whiteboard. They can do it on their own board or they can share it and all collaborate together. What I'd like for each of you to do is just share, when did you start your career in education? There's a few ways that you can share. On the left-hand side, there's a tiny little box that has a T. You could click on that T and just type it in. You could, underneath the pointer on the left-hand side, there's a sticky note. You could type it in there, Or what I did was I have the Bitmoji extension because elementary, we're all about Bitmojis. I'm sure the other grades are too, but I live in elementary world. And I just went to Bitmoji, found a pose, saved it to my desktop, and I used on the left-hand side, the add image option. So come in here, you can't break it. If you delete something, honestly, it's not the end of the world. This is just a fun get to know you. And share with all of us, when did you start your career in education? If you've never used Jamboard before and you want to just try out the pen or try out some options, go for it. So I'll give you a few seconds to add that in here. And then for those of you who finish quickly, if you want to go to frame 2 and you want to share where you're at on our rubber ducky scale, you can also do that on frame 2, and you can do that by using the top arrows next to 1 and 2. So I'm seeing 1989. It looks like someone's adding in around 1990, 1994. I feel like I might have needed to make this space a little bit bigger right in here, but this is great. Perfect. I'm liking the image. We've added an image. See, Jamboards are fun because we really get to get creative. And when you add them, they're going to come up huge. So you shrink it with the bottom right corner, click on it, and then use the bottom right corner to shrink and play with it that way. 93. Wonderful. Take a few more seconds and add these in there. Like I said, this isn't a huge part of it, but SEL is incredibly important in our day-to-day. So getting to know each of you is helpful. 1990. Love it. The baby entered kinder. So let's see if we had anyone add to the row. Oh, we had some add to our rubber ducky scale. This is really nice. I'm seeing where a few that added are on a 1 to 2 on our rubber ducky scale. Take about 5 more seconds and then head back over to the Zoom screen if you're still on the Jamboard, and we will keep going with our session. I am seeing though, a lot of us are right around that 1990 time on the timeline. You're going to all love this, but that's actually the year I was born. So for me, technology is something that I don't consider a tool. It's a way of life. It's something I've always known. I started typing on a computer I think our typing classes started in 1st grade, and I remember going to computer class in 1st grade. And we need to keep that in mind with our students. Technology to them is not a tool. It's just a part of their everyday life. Thank you so much for filling this in and seeing that's a Jamboard, how you can utilize them with students, just like we can with adult learners. So our real focus today is on 2.4 of the rubric for the CalTPA, which is how does the candidate incorporate educational technology, including digital, virtual tools, and resources, to provide opportunities for students to achieve and/or demonstrate content-specific learning goals. What I would like for you all to do, and I'm hoping that the screen is large enough, don't hit send yet, so we're going to do a waterfall share out. Look at this rubric 2.4 and pull out the keywords. What keywords do you see in here? 1, 2, 3 words. Type them in the chat, but don't hit send. We're all going to hit send at once. And I'll read it again. How does the candidate incorporate educational technology, digital and virtual tools and resources to provide opportunities for students to achieve and/or demonstrate the content-specific learning goals? Take a few seconds to come up with your keywords in the chat, and I will tell you when to hit send. Some of us are typing. All right. We are going to hit send in 3, 2, 1. Share your keywords that you're noticing. I intentionally have everyone wait to send because this is what I would do with students too. If they're going to be sharing out in the chat, which is going to be more 1st and 2nd grade, I don't want them to share right when the thought comes to them. I want them to take time to process and then all share at once. So that way I can get a true voice and feeling for students. But I'm seeing in the chat, we have tech opportunities, archive goals, sorry, not archive, achieve and goals, incorporating achieve. We're seeing achieve a lot, incorporating technology, learning goals. And so as you read through the chat, you're gonna notice that common theme, which is awesome. That's exactly what I expected. So there's no surprise here. But as an educator, if I was working with students on a similar project, this would be my quick formative assessment to see what words do they come up with. Are we on the same page? And we really are. The ones I highlighted were incorporate educational technology, opportunities, achieve, demonstrate, and learning goals. I had a lot. I was really excited about this. So the first part that we really want to focus is on the difference between enhancing versus replacing. And as we think about enhancing versus replacing, I pulled in a student reading a book. And in the classroom, there's a couple of things I could do with this. I could have my students, instead of reading a physical book, go on and read an e-reader. But the reality is that's just replacing what they already have. And is it any better? No, not unless they don't have access to a physical book would an e-reader be any bit better. What I want to instead do is take the tools that are in front of me and truly enhance and grow students' abilities. So from student achievement partners, they talk about asking students to participate in shared research tasks where students actually get to explore multiple texts and auxiliary resources to build knowledge on that topic. If I want my students to read about something, in this case, and I know it's very small, they're reading a book about crops. Crops, crops, crops. For me, I'm from Nebraska. Crops were like a regular everyday thing that we heard about. No, I didn't live on a farm, but I still knew a lot about crops. Now in Santa Clarita, I'm gonna be honest, I don't think a lot of my students know about crops. So what I can instead do is give them other points, touch points, to understand the content. So when they're reading, they have background knowledge. They know that crops include plants. They know that crops include a way of watering plants so that way they grow. So what I could do here is I could actually bring in a simulator, something that's going to get my students familiar with plants, how plants grow. If we're keeping in mind kindergarten, first grade, they don't have a lot of awareness of plants unless they've gotten it outside of school. So I brought in a plant simulator that students were able to play. It's quick, much faster than if I bring in seeds and soil and water, and we spend 4 or 5 weeks growing plants. That takes time and it's wonderful, and science, I'm all about that. But I need them to just have some background for when they read this book. So this is where I would enhance by bringing in that simulator and have them keep that physical book in front of them. As we dive into integrating technology in that meaningful way beyond just replacing with the book, there are a lot of technology frameworks out there. And it's almost intimidating, especially for teachers who haven't always been utilizing technology. If you look up technology frameworks for education, I mean, there are so many. I pulled in the top 4 that I regularly hear about. And I'll be honest, I like them all, and there's not one that I'm married to. I use them all depending on the situation. And in a lot of times, I don't bring in the framework itself. We bring in key points from the framework. But we have our TPAC on over here on the left-hand side, which is technological, pedagogical, content knowledge. And what that's saying is teachers have a strong background in content. Teachers also have a strong background in pedagogy. It's almost second nature for teachers to marry the two, to marry content and pedagogy. That's just, it's what we went to school for. It's where we're comfortable. How do we integrate technology, that technology knowledge? And so it's finding ways to take what's already married and add in that technology knowledge to support content and pedagogy. So this is a really common one, but I will say TPAC is most often used in secondary or post-secondary education. We don't often bring it down to the lower grades. although it could be. What we typically see in the earlier grades for education is the SAMR or the RAT model. SAMR is including substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. And that's right here in the middle. Sorry, the line's popping up at the bottom. What we're focused on with the SAMR framework is going from this bottom portion of enhancement and getting our lessons to be more on the topper part of the model, which is transformation. We want to spend more time focusing on modifying our lessons and redefining our lessons than we do on that substitution. Later on down the road, we had the RAT model come into play, which I wish it was a different animal because honestly, I don't love saying, oh, I'm doing the RAT model, but it's a rat. And all they did here, just if you're not aware, they took the two middle parts, the augmentation and modification, and put them together. They said that it's really not super clear the difference between augmentation, modification. We walk a fine line. So instead, let's push those two together. You're either at the transformation, sorry, you're at the replacement, and they flip the order, right? Replacement, amplification, or transformation. And then the other model that I've noticed a lot more over the last few years is the TIM matrix, which is the technology integration matrix. When we integrate technology, we want students to be active with it. We want them to collaborate, construct something, be authentic, have some goals to guide their usage of technology. So these are four of the most common. And I honestly don't think teachers need to memorize all four of these. That's way too overwhelming. It's great if teachers can have a focus on one, but for most teachers that I support in coaching cycles, we, instead of focusing on one of these four, we focus on 3 questions. There are 3 questions that I ask myself when I'm looking at integrating technology. The first question I ask myself is, what is my learning goal or my learning target? I always want to bring it back to the learning. It doesn't need to be this big thing where I've got, okay, here's how it's going to be redefined and here's how it's going to be modified and amplified. No, start with the learning goal. Once I have that and that part is solid, then I go into what tools are available for my students to enhance their learning. And by that, I'm looking at technology tools. If I'm introducing students to new content, that's not the time for me to introduce them to a new tool. Kindergarten, 1st, 2nd grade, that's too much. If I'm introducing Jamboard for the first time, then we're going to do something with Cell. We're going to do some social emotional, get to know you. I'm not going to have them do a math problem the first time they use the Jamboard. So reeling it in and focusing on what tools students already know how to use. And then I want to know, how do these tools support student mastery? We often think of including technology and we go to gamification. And I'm currently at Brandman getting my EdTech credential, and we talk a lot about gamification. That is like a huge talking point. It's great, but that often leads us to going into quizzes or Kahoot and not necessarily seeing student mastery. While quizzes, Kahoot, Bamboozle, those are all awesome. Those aren't necessarily enhancing my instruction. So I want to know, what tool did I just incorporate? How can I use that to assess student understanding? Similar to that waterfall activity. I mean, we just used the chat, we put it all in at once. I could quickly see, are we on the same page, or did I read this rubric 2.4 very different than everyone else? Oops. All right, that was a lot to give you all, but that's kind of the context for diving into some of the samples that I want to put in front of you and talk to you about. This first sample, which is going to focus on achieving a learning goal, right? That's our first part, is an ELA Common Core standard from 1st grade. And I tried to choose a standard that wasn't one that we always focus on. So instead, I went with ask and answer questions to help determine or clarify the meaning of words and phrases in a text. That is an area, that's a standard that I often wouldn't pull in a lot of technology. When I was teaching in kindergarten, it was really like, okay, let's look at our picture clues in this book. Now let's look at the sentence before it. Let's look at the whole paragraph, and we're going to pull directly from this book. I didn't have a lot of thoughts and honestly didn't incorporate a lot of technology when I was focused on identifying and using context clues. So I started with, if we go back, that first question, what is my learning goal and learning target? I will be able to identify and use context clues. I put in here a story from our Newhall curriculum that we utilize for first grade, which is on being a responsible citizen. And then within that book, they actually have the words to think about. And it focuses on citizen, community, decisions, honest, respect, responsible. And the word that stood out to me most was citizen. Citizen is not a word we talk a lot about in prior to first grade. They hear it, but it's not very clear exactly what it is. So before I dive into the technology inclusion, I want to talk about how this relates to me. I have to think about, okay, how would I use this in my real life every day? And the first thing I thought about was every time I go to a restaurant, I have celiacs, so I have to be a little extra careful with not getting gluten, right? When I go to a restaurant, and we like to pick, and lots of restaurants, we don't go to a lot of the chain restaurants. When I go, I look at the menu to see, okay, what can I eat? We're constantly using context clues without much thought. I can look at a menu and I can say, okay, the picture looks good, this item looks good, but honestly, I'm not quite sure what that is. A lot of times I can ask the server, whoever's helping us, but they don't always know either. So the first thing I do is I Google it. What is this? Does this have gluten in it? And I do a really fast Google search to learn more about that word. Well, why can't we take that same practice with our first graders and start Googling these words? Start putting more in front of them beyond what's in the book. Because right here for citizen, it says each student in a classroom is a citizen with a picture of students in a classroom. If I'm a student who's never heard this word before, I think that a citizen is a student. I would not tell anyone that my parents are citizens. You have to be a student. So going beyond context clues. Some available tools for that, I would say, are Jamboard. After I read this, we're going to open up a collaborative Jamboard. Or as the teacher, I'm going to open it up and you're going to share out. And within this Jamboard, using the Frayer model, I like to use it going backwards. What are some non-examples of citizens? Now let's talk about some examples, and you're typing this with the students or as they're watching. And with Jamboard, you can add those pictures, remember? So you can quickly add those pictures in. Now let's draw our own picture of a citizen. Okay, now let's talk about the definition in our own words. I can take it a step further and we can actually do a Google search of citizen. When I'm Google searching with students, I always type in for kids at the end of everything. So if I'm typing in, what is a citizen? I'll put 4 kids. It helps. It really, really filters out a lot. I would also try to pull in some type of video. This is something we're going to be talking about all unit. I want them to understand what a citizen is. And then beyond that, I'm going to pull in Google Maps. I want them to actually see, where am I a citizen? And we can start with our community. We can really dive into our school and then we can broaden it and keep doing that to get a stronger understanding of what a citizen is in many different contexts. So this would be available tools. These would all be tools that I've either used before with students or that as the teacher, I'm demonstrating as they're talking. Oh, and we don't want to watch the video, so we're going to go, there we go. So then we go to question 3. How do I know that my students are reaching mastery with this standard based on the tools I put in front of them? Jamboard, I find the easiest. As I'm going through that Frayer model with students and I'm asking them for examples and non-examples, I'm able to quickly see, are we on the same page? And then the dictionary. While this seems like a quick Google search, I want my students to take that dictionary definition and compare it to what they're reading in the book. Does that make sense to you? And I want to have that conversation with them. So it is a discussion. I'm bringing in technology in a very quick, simple format and not spending a ton of time in the dictionary, but really relating. And then anytime I introduce a video, it's never just watch a video and walk away. It's watch a video and let's talk about it. Let's bring that book out. Open up your book. Okay, where do we see some connections? And then Google Maps, I want my students to identify the areas where they are citizens. I want them to have that personal connection and really see. I mean, if you go in Google Maps, you can put the little person down in the street and see an actual picture of your school. You can zoom out and say, we live in this neighborhood. We zoom out even further, we live in this country, all of that. Before I go into math, I do want to check to see if there are any, so I'll go back here. If there are any questions about this, I know asking these 3 questions doesn't seem like a lot after going through all the frameworks, but it is helpful when guiding that lesson. And you'll notice I never once pulled in a Kahoot or a quizzes. While I love them, so don't think I'm putting them down, I didn't pull them in because they weren't necessary for the standard I was addressing. All right, I'm not seeing anything in the chat. So now we're going to dive into, and you can keep asking. So if you still have a question or you're still typing, keep typing.
Yes, and Becky, I'm not seeing any questions come up in the chat, but if they do, I will definitely let you know.
Perfect, thank you.
Of course.
All right, so now we're going to dive into math. What's interesting about math is when I think of technology and math, I actually find that there are a ton of tools out there. And what I mean by that is if you look up math manipulatives, you're going to get so many resources. I mean, so many resources. But if I take it to that next level and I look up math manipulatives just for K2, I'm stuck with a ton of resources. Math games for K2, ton of resources. But the reality is almost every single one is replacing physical resources. And if they have physical manipulatives that they can move with their hands, why am I having kindergartners go on another web page and open up that manipulative section? Are they collaborating with somebody else to enhance? What are they doing that's causing the virtual manipulatives to be better than the physical ones in their hand? If it's that we're at home learning, they don't have access to the physical manipulatives, then great, definitely replace with virtual. But if you don't have to replace, I genuinely don't recommend replacing. It's easier for kids to have their Zoom or their Meet up and have the physical manipulatives at the table in front of them. So I just want to give context in math that way because it does seem like the easier one until you realize we're not always replacing. All right, so this next one that we're going to dive into is around using addition and subtraction within 20 to solve word problems involving situations of adding to, taking from, putting together, taking apart, and comparing with unknowns in all positions. This is a super common one. If we look at achieving the core, this is one that they say to focus on during virtual learning. And really my learning target broken down for students would be, I can use different strategies for addition to solve word problems. I want to keep it simple for them. They're going to find that unknown. They're going to do all of that. But for my students, they're going to use different strategies for addition to solve word problems. I took a different approach with this one. I often utilize Flipgrid with students. Flipgrid is a free resource. And Flipgrid gives students the opportunity to share their voice. It also allows students to share back and forth with each other. So within this Flipgrid, I actually am asking students to create their own video using built-in stickers. And I'll show you the platform in just a second. But within the Flipgrid, I'm asking students to use the Flipgrid stickers, I'll show you those, to create a story problem. I gave them a few key things. The total is 6. One part is 2. What is the other part? This problem comes directly from Bridges, which we use in our district, and comes from any first grade, find the unknown really, but it comes from our curriculum, so I'm not going way outside the box. I could give my students this problem on the right-hand side. I could give them just this, ask them about it, have them solve it on paper. That's great. And I would hope my students would be successful as a quick check. But if I have them go into a Flipgrid and create a video, now they have to explain with their words, their reasoning. They have to give me a little bit more. I truly am able to see what do my students know and what are they able to teach me? Because now they get to be the teacher. So if I go to this one, why didn't I make it clickable? Oops. Oh, I didn't. we're going to go to it anyways because I do want you to see it. And you're welcome to go to it if you would like. If you've never played in Flipgrid, I just put it in the chat. We're going to go to Flipgrid quickly. And when I go to Flipgrid, and this is on the student's perspective, I'm actually able to come in here and record a response as a student. But you'll notice above that, I added in slides for my students. I added in a bit more. This would, again, not be the first time my students have used Flipgrid. This is for my class that uses Flipgrid regularly. They're often coming in and creating videos. So they can check out these slides. And within these slides, there are going to be, we use a lot of slides right now with virtual learning, but there are some videos that they can check out. There are some problems that they can do in case they don't remember. I want it all in one place. I don't want to have to tell them, oh, remember we did that last week, go back and open that. That's way over their head. So I would never do that with them. I want it all right in here. For my students who are ready to go, they're going to come down here and record their response. They also made the record button nice and huge for our kids who like to click. So they're going to click on record. I'm going to join really quick with Google just so you can get a quick glimpse of how this could be done. Here we go. And it's going to open up like this for students. Our students have access to this, so you're now seeing in another window. And my students would then add in stickers. Again, we've played with this before. This is not the first time. So maybe we're looking at, let's see, I know they've got a cookie sticker. We're going to look at some cookies. I'm going to add in a bunch of these cookies, and they're going to solve the problem that way. Oops, remove. And so they would keep coming in here. They would add in, I'm not going to do it all right in front of you. They would add in their cookies, and then they are going to hit record and start talking about it and be moving around their cookies. For some kids, that's a lot. And I totally get that's a lot. This would not be the first time we would do it. For some kids, they're going to solve it on paper, and they're going to hold up their paper, and they're going to talk to me as they do it. So I get to hear from them, and I truly get that student voice. Let's come back in here. And I want to show you some examples of, here we go, of some students utilizing Flipgrid to demonstrate their understanding of different types of math problems. So this one's not specific to the last one, but I did want to show this to you because I really appreciated how much effort the students put in. Please let me know if you cannot hear the sound, and do know these are second graders who use Flipgrid weekly. This is not uncommon for them. They use it all the time.
Hi guys, my name is Ryan. Today I chose 29 plus 30 as my equation. 29, and we added 10 to go to 39. We had another 10 to go to 49. Then we had another one to go to 59. So the answer to this question would be 59. Thanks, I hope you enjoyed it. And the landing points are 29, 39, 49, and 59. Bye! That's how I solve 29 plus 30 on the number line. I hope you come up with another equation on the number line. If you do the same equation I did, I hope you come up with a different way to get that answer. Bye!
You can tell there's a lot of, he's pulling out a lot of the same modeling and questioning that his teacher does on a very regular basis, but he is taking time to walk through it. And he did the work in advance, so he was able to do that, have that teaching moment. The next one I want to show you, it was not over addition and subtraction, but it's still from math. So this student chose to do, they were all doing like some breaking news. They were a news anchor sharing some new information. Here we go.
I have some news. I have 100, 2 10s, 5 1s. What number am I? If you got it right, it is 125. If you get it right, that's great. Bye, and that's the news.
So then what's nice is the teachers, I can come back to this. I mean, she just gave me the answer, but I can come back to this. I can see what answer did she get? I could pause it. I can look at her board, and then teachers can follow up in Flipgrid with their own video, or students can respond to each other's videos and say, can you show me a bit more about this? Or have you tried this strategy? You can have that back and forth conversation, and students can actually collaborate back and forth with each other if you open it up that way. What I would do too is I would bring one of these videos or two of these videos into my lesson. We're going to start off our lesson by bringing in a student video, and we're going to talk about it. And each time the students are ending with, you know, did you find another way? Did you see another way? Things along those lines. So I would pause and ask students, can you find another way to solve this? It also, while this does seem a bit like replacement, it is actually enhancing, because we're giving students that thought process time to sit down, think about their video. It's not always on the spot. And we're giving them the opportunity to get creative and use more than just that paper pencil when they need it. So really the key takeaway from all of this is truly just to focus on what students need to learn. We're not including technology just to say we included technology. We're including technology because it's going to enhance our learning. It's going to address that learning target. And we're going to be able to assess student mastery with that integrated technology. Beyond that, I know this was pretty quick. I did want to leave some time for questions. I do want to open it up for any questions that you may have. I'm happy to share examples or talk any more. But beyond that, definitely feel free to reach out at any time, and I'm happy to share. I think actually James has the PowerPoint, so we can share it that way, correct?
Yes, I do. And Becky, I'm going to go ahead and type in your email there so that folks can reach out to you if that's okay with you.
Absolutely, yeah, please do reach out to me. I am easily accessible.
And so right now, what we would like to do is see if there are any questions that may have come up during this presentation. And if you would like to post them in the chat, please do so. And we will post those to Becky and hopefully get some extra thoughts into the virtual space around this issue. Just to let you know, Becky, you're getting a lot of thank yous, very helpful.
Good, yeah, it really is all about, and what I tell teachers, it's all about the learning target. Like that's where we always have to start. And for some reason, when we made this virtual shift back in March, because most of us, that's when our virtual transformation happened, we instead were more focused on learning the technology. And I'm not saying across the, like everybody was, but that's really where our focus went to. And so it's now time, now that we've got the technology down, it's time to step back and what do we know? We know learning target, we know pedagogy, we know content. Now let's integrate the appropriate technology.
Right. While we're waiting for some people to maybe formulate questions, oh, here we have one from Amy. She says, would you please clarify if any of your examples would meet the level 5 rubric or provide examples of what this would look like for lower primary? Let's talk with the lower primary first. Maybe I pose that to you, and then Amy, I will get to the first part of your question from the commission's perspective. So Becky, maybe talk about what it could look like with lower primary grades.
Yeah, definitely. So with all of these with lower primary grades, it's a lot of the teacher pulling up that technology. Technology doesn't always mean that every student is researching. Not every student is going into this. So a great example, I was recently doing a lesson with kinder, and keeping in mind our kinders have never actually physically been in a classroom. They know virtual learning. And if I were to sit here and talk at them, to them for 30 minutes, I mean, they were lost. So the whole time we are up and moving and talking. I mean, we were reading of course, the name's not going to come to me, but you're all going to know the Lion and the Mouse book, where the mouse saves the lion after the lion doesn't eat the mouse. I see head nodding. You know the name of the book. It's gone. We were reading that one, and I could have just stuck with reading the book and being very animated and asking my students questions throughout. But then we got down into, okay, well, let's learn more about the lion's habitat. Where are lions at? And we pulled up Google Earth, and then my students, I was taking over a class for the day, but they were asking questions. So they weren't going out of the Zoom at all. We use Google Meet, but same thing. They weren't leaving the meet. And they're standing and sitting and moving around, but they were asking questions, and they are quick about coming on and off mute and really driving that inquiry beyond just student asks a question and I answer. Well, where do lions live? They live in Africa. Okay, you answered it. I don't have any more because I'm 5 and I have no idea what that even means, but cool. So instead we went into Google Earth and we went in and we looked at this, and there's live footage of animals. And the one that we went into is focused on elephants. And so there's actually live footage of elephants. And then we saw some animal I didn't know the name of because I'm not an expert, and sometimes words just aren't always there, but we were looking at it and talking about it. And then students started asking more questions, and that really drove our instruction even deeper. When it came back to it, and our purpose was really around character, and we were trying to understand character traits, students had a better idea about lions, and lions are the top of the food chain. And so when we read a book about a lion and it says the lion is so brave, well, that makes sense. A lion is very brave because we now have all this background knowledge on lions. Students didn't have to leave. They could get up and move. I didn't sit once during the lesson. And I don't know if they were at some points, they were like on the side looking, but they were there and they were engaged. And it's not always about them going into another site or going into the technology. It's about using technology to bring into the lesson. So with Kay, I don't push them out often while we're virtual. In the classroom, they'll go to different sites and all of that. But when we're in the classroom, to have 2 tabs open is like having a house with no adults because they just don't know what to do. Their world has just gone crazy. So I like to pose the questions and have them share their thoughts and ideas. And we dive in and we look it up because we have access to now go see animals live right now across the world.
Perfect. And then Becky, so that I can answer the first part of the question, could you go back to your slide that has the rubric for the CalTPA? I believe.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So here, if we look at the rubric and this essential question, how does the candidate incorporate educational technology, digital, virtual tools, and resources to provide opportunities for students to achieve and/or demonstrate content-specific learning goals? To really look at that and looking at some of the examples that Becky provided, we're seeing that it's expanding that opportunity to achieve and demonstrate the learning goal. In the example that Becky just shared with in terms of the kindergartners being able to go into Google Earth and looking at what they are understanding about a lion, possibly even a mouse, if that were to come up, is that it is expanding their understanding of the content learning goal and the content standard. I always talk about augmenting or enhancing understanding, and really in terms of what you have provided, even the Flipgrid of the young boy talking about how he used a number line to solve the equation, he again is utilizing technology to showcase his understanding and even taking it to another level, explaining it to others, which we know is probably the best way that we learn is when we get to explain that information to others. So we have to think about educational technology not existing in a vacuum, but how does it broaden any of our worlds? I mean, I would even take it to adults, how we can use technology to really expand our understanding and knowledge within what has been provided. Again, remember, we are talking about preliminary candidates. So these are candidates who are still in teacher preparation programs. So there is an understanding of a preliminary approach, but hopefully you've seen that you can take in different pieces and give them that opportunity. And I really like what you said about it is enhancing, not replacing. And it is that key that could really help not only the candidate, but also the students at expanding information and understanding.
And I hope that answered your question, Amy. I apologize. I don't have the 5 different levels up in front of me, but I would be happy to dive deeper into that if you all want to send me an example in email. I'm definitely happy to dive deeper into that.
I think one thing that maybe is aligned with this that maybe you could speak to is, I know that there are some, and I'm going to bring us out of this and into more, if we, or
Stop
actually,
share?
I think Becky, yeah, stop
There you
sharing
go.
and we'll go into gallery mode. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is I think one of the concerns that, we have is with regard to cost. I know that in Google, there are several different applications that are free because they're part of the educational suite. Because we never want candidates or anyone to incur some type of financial burden just to, be able to satisfy the performance assessment. Do you have any information or things that you can share with regard to that particular issue?
Around free cost, honestly, a lot of it is, so there's a lot of free resources out there. One thing I have pushed teachers in my district to do is to avoid the COVID resources. And what I mean by that is right at the very beginning in March, so many platforms said, teachers, you get free access. It takes time to learn a tool and to learn a tool well enough to be able to enhance your lesson and utilize that tool. So if I'm going to spend my time focusing on this resource, it better maintain, like, I want to use it long-term, not for today, not for tomorrow. So instead I said, stick with the tools we know and use. Stick with the Google platform because that's what our district chose. Districts, some are choosing Microsoft, all of that, that's fine. Stick with Seesaw, whatever you use, stick with it and find the best ways to use it. YouTube is free for everyone. YouTube Kids is free. I'm not a recommender of safe YouTube. They've been hacked too many times, but YouTube Kids, those are free. A few others, we've got like Book Creator. Book Creator is free and a great tool for kids. We have Flipgrid, Kahoot. What are some other common ones that we use in my district? There's a plethora.
Is Pear Deck one that you use?
We don't, but Pear Deck has a free option and then it has a paid option, and the free option is just fine. But if you're going to use those where they've got, what do they call them, freemiums, where they're free, some of it's free and some of it's premium, right? If it's a freemium, get to know the free tools. Those 30-day trials are awesome. 90-day trials are awesome. I don't waste my time with paying for the trial unless I know I'm going to invest money in this. And I don't push for that. So focus on the free. I'm sure I've got a Wakelet. I like Wakelet for curating content, not necessarily, I mean, you can use it with students. I wouldn't in the earlier grades. Padlet's another one, it's a freemium. James, can I send you a list of some of the freemiums that I have, and would you be able to share that out or include that?
Sure. Yes, we could do that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I know.
And I just want to remind everyone that these are not platforms that the commission endorses or says this is what you should use. So please understand these are suggestions.
Yes.
They are independent of what the commission is stating. So I just want to make sure we are not promoting a specific one over the other. These are just resources that your candidates may find useful as they are looking at ed tech.
I'll put it in a Wakelet format, which if you've never used, I promise it's as simple as open it up and they'll be there, and I'll say like Becky's favorites, not at all from the commission, but these are ones I like, and there's so many more that I don't use. And honestly, like I did a workshop at Fall Q talking about the amount of resources that are put in front of us on a regular basis and how it's great, but incredibly stressful at the same time. So stick with the 5 you feel good about. Don't go beyond that.
I would definitely echo that. And, having looked at what candidates come into the classroom with. It's better to have a few that they feel very comfortable with than to try to throw so many out. It's the same thing with instructional strategies. We know that younger teachers get very excited when they go to a workshop, and I love it, but you can't throw it all at the students at once, because whether they're in early grades or even up through high school, they're going to say, what's wrong with you? And why are you taking me on these multiple paths? So the other thing that I just wanted to say was we are so appreciative of Becky and her work to provide this information. Becky, I'm so indebted to you and the Newhall School District with all of the innovative things that you're doing for our students. I'm looking at our time and we are at 3 minutes before 12. So I do want to honor our time for you as the presenter, but also for our participants. Just as a reminder, this will be uploaded to the CalTPA YouTube playlist. So please share with your constituents that you feel would benefit from that. That could be mentors, supervising teachers, university supervisors, candidates themselves. Please know that we want this to be shared with everyone, and we will make sure that we get the information that Becky will share to you so that you can access that as well. So again, Becky, thank you so much on behalf of the commission and also our participants who are here, and we hope that everyone has a great rest of your Friday and a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Becky. That was wonderful.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.